Welcome to Launch Stories. That's what I'm talking about. So Launch Stories is all about helping Chilliwack entrepreneurs connect and learn. And thanks to our gold sponsors for helping put these events on monthly. We've got the Chilliwack Economic Partners and the Chilliwack Innovation Network. And thanks to the Chamber of Commerce, who have joined us as a silver level sponsor recently. And thanks to our partners for organizing Launch Stories each month. We've got Cowork Chilliwack, Currency Marketing, and Zinum Ventures. And special thanks to Elise McAlpine for running all of the AV equipment and recording the show tonight. And you can see her in her environment up here, pressing all the right buttons. So thank you very much. So I am thrilled to introduce you to our guest this evening. He's the founder of the Apollo Clinic and P3 Products. Please give a warm Launch Stories welcome to John Forde. Look at this.
I was a little worried with that big pause. I didn't know if you changed your mind. Thank you.
Well, welcome,
much.
John. I was saying to John earlier that I'm not going to challenge him to an arm wrestle. I don't think it would end well for me. So.
It's been like this a long time, yes.
So before we jump into it, I'm curious, can you give us a quick elevator pitch of what P3 Products or P3 Cream is?
Anyone know what P3 Cream is? First of all, this is great. One first. Okay, perfect. Did you know that 98% of topical analgesics contain poisons that, when added to other medications, can cause grievous harm? So basically, I was a therapist for 30 years, and part of the story that we'll get to later, halfway through, I created a product that would be non-harmful to my patients. And that's what P3 Cream is. And my goal is to capture 10% of the market share of our biggest competitor, which is Biofreeze. And their market share is $1 billion. So 10%.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Perfect. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you're an Agassiz boy.
Yes.
Tell me about growing up in Agassiz.
I loved it. I loved growing up in Agassiz, lived on a farm, great friends, part of the sports world in Agassiz, which, if anyone knows Agassiz, back in the 80s, we were unstoppable on the basketball court. And I was very fortunate to be part of that team. Still, all my friends to this day, the whole team, we were all very, very close and still are to this day. Yeah.
So tell me about the farm. Was this a commercial farm or a small hobby farm? Or?
Yeah, small hobby farm. My dad loved animals, and we had horses. Beef, pigs, turkeys, chickens, guinea hens.
And how many siblings?
I had 3 others, but they were all gone.
Okay.
So I was like an only child.
So what did that mean? Were you doing all the chores on the farm?
All the chores on the farm.
So when was the alarm going off?
Every morning at 7, and it wasn't an alarm.
Okay.
It was my mom. Good morning, Mary Sunshine. Every morning.
What did the chores entail?
Well, we had to carry buckets of water up in the winter, up 158 stairs to the top of the farm, feed for the chickens, clean out the horse stalls. Yeah, it was just a common. After school, I split wood. You couldn't do anything until your chores were done, basically. Mm-hmm. And the morning wasn't as bad. It was more get ready for school and get on the bus and go.
Got it.
But there were a few things, and if my dad wasn't able, if he was off at work, then I would go do whatever he had to do. Mm-hmm. Start the fire. We had no furnace. We had two wood stoves.
Wow.
So in the winter, start the fires. Yeah, yeah.
And so there wasn't much to do other than sports and music, I understand,
Yes.
when growing up.
Music was huge for me, yeah.
What did you play?
I started playing saxophone. I started with a banjo uke, actually, my parents gave me when I was 9, and then a saxophone that my dad got for me from, I want to say George Steele, who was the saxophone player for the Copper Room in Harrison Hotel, who George gave me a couple lessons and then unfortunately passed away, and I received his saxophone. And the deal was, you play it every night for a minimum of half an hour, and we'll get you this. I think I played it 2 hours every night. We had no TV.
Wow.
Right? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So was that the involvement with the saxophone, or were you also in the school band?
I was in school band as well, stage band.
Got it.
And then I think when I was maybe 16, I grabbed a guitar. And then at 18, the last present I got from my parents was a guitar. And that just kept going.
And have you kept up with music over the years?
Oh, yes. I played professionally for 10 years through 1998 through to the early 2000s.
Wow.
And I still play all the time. I play piano, I play guitar, I sing. I have about 30 instruments. It's a little bit of an issue I have.
And you mentioned it, but Agassiz is known for, especially in that era, of winning championships. And so you were involved in basketball, I believe, and athletics in general.
I was on the track and field team for Canada as well. And so my life was, if we weren't at basketball practice, I was with my coach here in Chilliwack, actually, Harold Willers, who was an amazing, so he may have taught some of the people in this room. He taught here for the last 40 years. And he was my strength and conditioning coach. And I had a technique coach in the city that I go to 3 days a week.
And what technique were you perfecting?
Oh, I was a hammer thrower, discus thrower. That's why I'm so tiny. Yeah.
Got it.
The focus was heavy weights at a young age and get big, and the height helped. I was tall enough to be a good hammer thrower. So I was very fortunate. I had really good people, and we practiced so much. I did achieve a #1 ranking in North America in I think 89. I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I got hurt. And the Olympics in 92 were a no-go for me. So
got it.
Yeah.
You shared a story about Tony Robbins. I think your brother went to a seminar, and it really had an impact on you as well. Can you share why that resonated, and what was it?
Well, so my brother had gone to see Tony. He'd done the fire walk. He had done all that stuff in the 80s. And I was heavy into the national team, and we had a positive thinking coach, we called them. And I had a bad experience with one of my coaches, and he told me I was too weak to achieve my goal. I was very goal oriented, always was, and so I had this goal of 60 meters was the number for throwing this hammer. And he said, "No, you're too weak." So I went home destroyed. My brother had just gotten home from a Tony Robbins seminar, and my mom said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, Mike told me I'm too weak." So my brother took over. His Tony came out, I guess, and he said, "Oh, that's just terrible, and you're not too weak." And he talked about stories of superhuman strength in moments of when you're not blocked by your mind. So he helped me create my own positive thinking tape where he talked to me, and we put this music on and went for half an hour, and then it woke up to Rocky music at the end. And I listened to this for 3 years every day. I would lay down, get in my trance, listen to this. Anyway, back up. So I started this, and I had trained with Mike. I could not get past 53 meters if we're talking about numbers. And in those 2 weeks, I threw 57.92, 59.22, 63 meters in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because of this guy. Yeah. Because of my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so was this, he recorded it on a cassette, and you had it in your Walkman, and you got it.
It was a microphone in the bedroom with a, record and play at the same time, and just talked me through, and we had music in the background playing.
That's amazing.
It was visualization, really. Right?
And so you ended up with a full ride scholarship to Simon Fraser, and that was a combination of kinesiology and French, I believe.
Yeah. That was a mistake. I think that was.
Which part, the French? Or?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Actually, is I was offered. I was very fortunate. I was offered scholarships all over the States, and I was too afraid to leave little old Agassiz. And so I was away on a national team trip. I came home on August 24th, and my parents picked me up at the airport and said, "Just so you know, we've accepted SFU's offer." So I didn't even know I was going. Wow. And so I said, "Well, what am I taking?" And they said, "Well, we'll figure that out." And my AD, I shouldn't tell the story because it's terrible. So many students have to wait in line for hours. But our athletic director basically gave me a full line of classes that I wanted. And when I couldn't think of the last one, I chose French because I did well in French in high school. So I took French, and that was a mistake, I think.
And were you also on the athletics team at SFU, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I was a varsity track athlete.
Got it. Okay.
And I was doing just fine until I hurt myself, and then I was knocked off the team, and I had the red shirt for that year. I couldn't compete, and you probably want to tell.
Well, my understanding, it was not spinning and throwing the hammer that caused the injury.
We went to UBC dancing, and I was quite the dancer, so I did the splits and tore my groin so badly that I had black and blue all through my leg, and I was out for 2.5 months as a result of that. And to this day, well, not anymore because he's retired, but the athletic director would use me as an example. And I think you may have heard this through the grapevine, that I had a patient years later, and they were at SFU as a track athlete. And I said, I went there. And they said, what'd you do? I said, I was a hammer thrower, but I had a red shirt in my first year. And she said, are you the guy that was dancing? And I said, yes, I was the guy dancing. So it was still fun. We had a lot of fun, but yeah.
And that wasn't your only injury, though. I believe you hurt your ankle, or
I did,
or a ligament, I think.
Yeah, I tore a ligament in my ankle right in about 1990, early 1990s, I think it was.
So I imagine your identity and everything was wrapped up in, this is me, this is what I do.
100%.
Like, how did that shift? Did you power through it? Did your brother do a new tape for you? Like,
not at that point. It was very difficult because I went from that's what I was going to do. All my friends progressed through to the Olympics, and I was left behind. And it was really that was the first thing in my life I had to deal with, which I'm very blessed to not have to deal with other things in my life. But that was hard, and no one was there to kind of coach you through that. It's just part of, pull up your socks and get up the next morning and go. But it really was, I don't want to say I was depressed, but maybe I was. I don't know. I was very upset. And 7 days a week that's what I did. And at school, honestly, school was secondary. Throwing was number one for me. And then when all of a sudden I couldn't throw anymore, then I just turned to academics and worked on that.
And you used the term red
shirt. So
red shirt. What does that mean?
Basically, you give up the year on your scholarship so you can get it at the end. So if you stay for the 4 years, you can do a 5th year.
I see.
And compete and do that instead of in your first year.
So what did you do? Did you shift it then? I'm just going to concentrate on the academic side, or where did you go from there? So if we fast forward, I competed in another international meet. I was re-injured there. I flew home early, and I met my wife, and that shifted me into, it's time to grow up. I want to marry her. I need a job. I need to progress to the next stage. So I turned to academics, and I went into becoming a therapist. Right.
And from there, I used my relationships from my athletic life to, once I finished my therapy program.
So you shifted from SFU to West Coast College of Massage.
Yeah.
And that's in Vancouver.
It is. I was going into physio, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I was so injured with my ankle that you had talked about. I was on crutches, but I was the team captain, so I was on the team. They flew me, I think we were just in Edmonton at a meet, or Saskatchewan. I think it was Edmonton. And there was a massage therapy tent, which I didn't know what that was. And I thought, well, I'll crutch over and see what they have to say about me, because I'm doing nothing else here.
Right.
So this angel of a woman, she said, here, get on my table, I have 5 minutes. And she grabbed my ankle, moved it around, and dug her thumb into the worst spot. And I tell you, it was the most pain I'd ever experienced at that point in my life. She cross-fiber frictioned, this injury that I had had maybe 7 weeks earlier. So I wasn't even weight bearing at that stage still. And she did this for 4 or 5 minutes, and I said, okay, I have to go, see if you can stand on that. I said, stand on that. And I had tears running down my face. It was so painful. I stood on it. And I thought, this is a miracle. All these other therapists did nothing for me. And this lady just put her hands on me, and now I can stand. And so I literally, in that moment, switched from physiotherapy into what she did. And that's why I went to that school. And I don't know who she is. I wish I did. Yeah, I wish I could tell her thank you. Yeah.
An angel with brutal hands.
Oh, yeah, she was great. But it also showed me that working in sports therapy is what I wanted to do. I wanted to try and help people get through these injuries that I had. I figured there's a reason you get these injuries. I do really believe in that, and this was my reason. I had so many injuries, and I think later in life I was able to say to so many athletes, "Oh yeah, I've dealt with that. I totally understand where you're at."
So, from the layman's standpoint, physiotherapy and massage therapy, that sounds similar to me, but is it quite different?
It's quite different. So you would go through your regular university for your physiotherapy degree. My daughter's actually in that right now in Dublin, and for massage therapy, it was a 3,000-hour course, so a longer course of actual class time and hands-on than physio was, because of the normal university at that time was only 4 years, and it was about 1,600 hours. So it was really interesting. But when you get out as a physiotherapist, you have a very different credential. You can work in the hospital, for example.
Right.
So my focus was really hands-on, get in there, and then I went total sports orientated. And I ended up working in a sports clinic as soon as I got out, and then moved on to sports teams after
Got
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you were recruited. You had done some work, I understand, but then your first real gig was with the Canucks, and were recruited.
Hey,
I don't know if it's too early to talk about the Canucks. For those watching this recording,
Yeah.
John
I
was
was
there
there
last night.
You guys are much more subdued than last night's crowd. Yeah, it was. That was kind of sad last night. The last time I was in a playoff rink was literally in 1994. Yeah, I literally had not been back because so I worked for the Canucks as a trainer. I was hired by Dr. Doug Clement, who was our national team doctor, Olympic doctor for track and field. So he knew my story, and I think he felt, oh, poor John, he got injured out of this life, went into that life. Oh, well, now we can pick him up because I know he's not crazy. So they pulled me onto the team, and that was amazing. Working with these guys is incredible.
And so some of the big names at this point were Pavel Bure.
Oh yeah, Trevor Linden, Dave Babbage,
Yeah.
Serge Semesso, Mary Craven, Dougie Lidster. Like, they're just awesome.
So tell me about the job. Well, what does that entail? Is it game day? You're giving massages, or you're working on injuries, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of hurry up and wait. You only work on the guys playing. The game day, we have sometimes a morning skate, and sometimes those guys don't play if they're on the ice that night. The off days, I would work on guys. I would work on things that arose in a game even. So right on the ice, we would pull them off, and I'd work with things right then and there. It was a great story with Trevor, actually. Linden, he came in and he said, "Oh, I got a sore back." So I said, "Well, let's work on it." So I stayed with him. I think we worked on it till midnight after the game. And we left, and we're the same age, so it was really easy for us to connect. And the next day he came in, he said, "Hi, Johnny, I feel great." I said, "Good. Well, that's kind of the idea. I hope you feel better." He said, No, I really feel great. And before the game, he got dressed, came in, "John, I feel great." I said, "Well, good." Then he scored 2 goals. So he comes in and he slaps a checkbook down. He starts writing me a check. I said, "Don't do that." He said, "No, I got to do something." So he took his jersey off and gave me his jersey. So I still have that hanging in a shadow box. And I just saw him the other day, and it was really funny because I've not seen him for a long time. And I said, "Trev," he looked at me, and I said, 1993, and he said, "Oh man, that's 30 years ago." And we had a nice visit. And yeah.
Is there any feeling of working on a multi-million-dollar back versus someone who plays recreational sports?
That's a great question. Donovan Bailey, the most conceited man in the world. I mean, the fastest man in the world. So I was working with Donovan, and he came to town for the Commonwealth Games prelims in Abbotsford. And his coach phoned me and said, you gotta come in at 2. And I said, well, I can't. I have patients in my clinic. I'll see him at 3:30. Well, no, that's too close to his race. So he waited. Everything was fine. And bottom line is, no, there's no difference other than, some guys have bigger muscles than other people. That's about it. But the biggest problem is their ego. These guys, they did not have that. These guys were like 12-year-olds, which I think a lot of hockey players are, to be fair.
So that was kind of like, in my mind, and maybe it was my age, but that seemed to be like, these people were on a really high level, like era of Wayne Gretzky and so forth. Like, would you have any interaction with the other teams coming in?
Absolutely,
or what did that look like?
So because I don't know if anyone knows how training works in the NHL, but you've got your head trainer and you've got an assistant trainer, and I was the assistant trainer to Larry Ashley, this fellow with a mustache. And he unfortunately passed away right after this. And that's why I was brought on, because Larry had cancer at the time. But I would then help the other team. So if the other team ran out of tape or if they needed anything, I would run it over to them. So let's say, great example is Wayne Gretzky. We would play in the playoffs in '93. We had a whole series with LA. So I was back and forth with what they needed if they were here, and if we were there and we needed something, I would go be the runner. I have lots of fun stories about that. I was running through the bowels of the Great Western Forum in LA, and I was going through these doors that were opening and closing, like restaurant doors. And I went through and I collided with somebody, and his face hit me right in the chest, and he fell over hard. And it was James Woods, the actor. And I said, oh, Mr. Woods, I'm so sorry. And he was apologizing, though. He said, no, it's my fault. But yeah, I had lots of fun experiences like that. Lots of actors in LA. But then, Kelly Rudy, who's on TV all the time, I helped Kelly with a bunch of stuff. And Wayne, of course. Wayne Gretzky was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Absolutely, hands down. And I'm sure he still is to this day. But I had about 5 or 6 really fun moments with Wayne.
And how long were you doing this job?
Through the season of '93 and through the playoffs. And then I stopped traveling after the '93 playoffs. And then I would go back in '94 when they needed some extra help at home.
And at that point, you were starting to build your own practice with your own clients?
I was working in the Richmond Aquatic Center in a sports clinic over there.
Got it.
And I was working with the national track team again, my old friends. Most of the runners, Zeva Crooks, Paul Williams, Lynn Williams, those old names from way back. But we were married already, so we got married in '91, and we were kind of itchy to get a house. The only way to get a house is to come out to the valley. So we found a house in Abbotsford, and we were able to buy that and then move out in 90, like, I want to say like December '94. So the end of '94, we left Vancouver.
Well, before we jump into your entrepreneurial chapter, there's one really weird tangent that I want to touch on, and it was, well, maybe not really weird. It's all about strongman, but you got really involved in the Highland Games.
I did.
Which is, is there a Scottish element to your background?
There is. Okay. Yep, there is. I'm Irish and Scottish, really. There's a little bit of Norwegian and French in there, but this is my grandmother's tartan, the McDonald tartan. So because I was a thrower and in track and field, I threw the hammer and the discus and the shot put. Those 3 elements translate into this. So bottom line is my wife wanted to start traveling. I don't travel well. I did a lot of traveling with the hockey team. I did a lot of traveling with the track team. And I felt if I traveled, I needed to do something. I couldn't just, travel. What do you do? You look at a castle or something. I don't know.
What do you do? Apparently you pick up telephone poles.
So I contacted a friend of mine named Doug McDonald, and Doug was at the time the current world champion in the caber toss from here. He was originally from Nova Scotia in a place called Antigonish, which is ironically where my grandfather was from too, on my mom's side. But Doug was teaching at a Catholic school out here in Abbotsford, and we connected because he had come to the clinic to see me. And I said, hey, would you teach me the Highland Games? And he said, I'd love to. So we became training partners for 2 years. And, I had trained my whole life as a thrower. So I was a bit of a ringer. I came in throwing, and all the events, except for this, are really centered around the turning of hammer and discus and shot put. And the stone, which is a 26-pound Braemar stone, it's just a shot put. It's not difficult. It's just having the strength to do it. So
describe this event?
The caber?
What do you do with this telephone pole?
So this specific event is in Edinburgh. And you'll see there's some strongman things as well that we had to have some fun lifting, and these stones onto the barrels, and you've probably seen that on TV.
Right.
Same guys were all there. Doug Edwards is the guy on TSN. That's him right there, who was doing all of the officiating back in the day. So this is a caber. Does anyone know what a caber is? Has anyone seen this before? So traditionally, the Scottish would throw these, we're told, to get across like moats in times of warfare. So one big guy would run forward and hopefully not get shot with an arrow.
I was struggling with the why. No.
Yeah, and he would flip it. So the whole idea is you flip it, and it goes end over end. And if it goes straight, that's a perfect throw. If it lands and it goes off to the side, that like a 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, that's not perfect because it would end up in the moat. But if you can throw it straight, then the guys can hustle across it and get across these things. So that was kind of the story of why the caber was started.
Got it.
And then it became the who could do it, who was better in the room, who could throw this thing. So,
because honestly, it feels like something Monty Python came up with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, if you think about the weight for distance is a 28-pound weight on a chain with a handle, and you swing twice and you throw it 80 feet. So it's a really good implement. It's like before cannons.
Got it.
Right? You could throw these things.
Yeah, you've got a series here of what is this?
Yeah. There's the weight for distance right there. Yeah.
Got it.
So the weight for height, that's a 56-pound weight that you're throwing up and over as high as you can.
Right.
Yeah. And so these are all just for me, just fun and games, because I spent my life throwing heavy things around. And this is in 97, 98 as well. And I was 10 years out of track and field, and I think I was itching to do something. And if Carmen wanted to go to Scotland, I thought, well, I could do that in Scotland. And I ended up winning over here and qualified to compete in Scotland as a professional Highland Games athlete. It was called the CGA, Scottish Games Association.
Okay.
And the really fun story of that is you'll notice that I do have something on under my kilt, which is always the question. And it's because there was a guy at the Braemar Games back in the day where the Queen was, who lifted the caber and caught his kilt and unfortunately exposed himself to everybody, and it was nationally televised. And after that,
there's a crown jewels joke
no
in there
more.
somewhere.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So after that, they literally, before every games, they would come and we'd have to show that we had something on. So that was the fun part of the question.
And you touched on your music, but I dug up this, which is the Sabre Sisters.
The Sabir Sisters.
Sabir Sisters. And you played
sisters,
Celtic folk and fiddle.
I did, yeah.
And with these folks.
These are my sisters. I'm still working with this one right here. This one over here is a lawyer now. Oh, what is she doing? Counseling, I think. But they're all so successful. This one is Sarah Bulio, who is dealing with all of the residential school stuff.
Oh, wow.
This is the girl who's been on the news for the last 3-4 years. Yeah, I love these girls. And so I played music with them for 10 years. We played big stages like Merritt Mountain Music Festival, 30,000 people, and they're incredible. I just played backup. I played percussion and guitar and some whistle for them.
And these were all kind of things you did on the side, but it seems like everything you do on the side you take to the nth level, right?
I do, and it's not a problem.
No, it never is.
I'm glad I don't, take eating to the nth level. Like, I think if you take certain things to the
Right.
too many high levels, it's not good. Music is definitely my place to transcend everything else and go to somewhere else. I love music. She married the best fiddler in Canada, 8-time Grandmaster champion fiddler, Mark Sullivan. He's incredible too, and I get to play with Mark all the time.
Wow.
So amazing people, and yeah, I don't know. We traveled. We had so many fun stories as well, and I just believe that everything I do, I really should do it all the way. I shouldn't do it halfway.
And so that coming out to buy a house in Abbotsford and having mortgage payments, that you had to actually like make some money.
I had to make
Whereas
some
some of
money.
these other things are for pursuit of happiness and so forth. But you started the Apollo Clinic in, I believe it was 1999.
We just had our 25th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Same location.
And so that started in Abbotsford. And describe what the Apollo Clinic is.
So, we started off as a sports clinic. Was my dream to have a sports clinic, and we worked with everybody in the Fraser Valley with, athletic injuries. And I created a group of colleagues that would refer back and forth. And really, it started as just myself and 2 other guys. And it was really myself. And when I moved into this space, I thought I have to go from just this 50 people a week to more. So with 2 other therapists, we're now up to 150 people a week we could help. And then it just over the years grew and grew and grew to now we have 2 clinics, one in Chilliwack, one in Abbotsford, and we have about 50 people working. So it's we're really the goal was to help more people, just to keep helping more people. And we're up to 4,000 patients a month now between the 2 clinics. And,
Wow.
And the goals have been achieved, really.
So as part of the massage diploma or degree that you got, did they touch on being self-employed or starting a business, or was it entirely just the
Not at all.
actual?
Yeah, not at
So
all.
how did you learn that? Was it just trial and error? Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have entrepreneurial mentors? Was your family involved in business at all, or
No,
no?
no. I wish.
So there must have been some beautiful mistakes made early
Oh,
on.
yes.
Can you let us in on any of them?
Well, the initial investment is always the biggest thing that you have to do. And I remember at the time it was a $72,000 loan. Well, that was more than our mortgage. And
what did you need that money for? Equipment and leasehold improvements.
So leasehold improvements were included actually in our rent.
Okay.
In our lease, equipment for sure, and expansions. So it was really leasehold improvements because I kept expanding as we needed it, and really just equipping the whole space and having money in for cash flow for our front desk, and computers were a new thing. Like we did everything when I started there. We did everything on book and pencil, not pen. You had to erase when someone cancels, and then we had to upgrade to computers. And at the time, you remember computers were expensive in those days, right? So it was a couple grand for a computer. So I haven't thought about that in years, but I think how do we get through those is you just go to work. So nothing stops you. Sickness doesn't stop you. And I remember I had sprained my ankle. I crutched out to get my patient, and he was on workers' comp. And he looked at me and said, "Are you my therapist?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, I should go back to work, I think." I said, "Well, let's take a look at your hand." And I crutched into my room and put my crutches down and worked on him, and it was hilarious. And by the end of it, he literally said, "I need to go back to work." So I thought that was good, to kind of show through. Sometimes we have to be off. 100%.
I remember my father, when I started out in business, he gave me a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and it had a lot of good fundamental things. But essentially, the thesis of the book is that the expert, in your case, the massage therapist, says, well, I can do this on my own. I'm not going to work for somebody else. That person's getting all the money. And then you realize, Oh, wow. There's a lot to actually running the business. When am I going to actually do the massage therapy? And in your case, your standard hours. So I imagine all of the like business stuff was in the evenings and weekends and doing books and keeping up with it. How long did that go? Like all 25 years or?
Oh, 100%. So the best thing that happened was we got big enough that my wife could stop being a professor, and she actually came and helped me tremendously with HR. Because HR was the hardest part, like just helping people figure out, shift work and what do you do if someone's sick and how I can't jump out of my room and cover a front desk. So having Carmen there to step in, and she's really good with that, like excellent with contracts. And so I think I really attached myself to good people, and they helped me get through there. It wasn't all me, for sure. I didn't do a lot of contracts. I'm more of a shake my hand and I'll work for you forever kind of guy. So everybody knows I have their back there, and we've retired 3 therapists after 20 years of working there, and we have 4 more that are approaching their 20-year mark with us, and it's been great.
And how does it work with massage therapists? Are they full employees? Are they contract workers that are self-employed?
Subcontractors.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so are they working per block that's booked, or how does that work?
So it's a percentage base, basically. So they come in and they'll see, they're their own boss, so they'll see as many patients as they want, and they just pay a percentage of what they bring into the clinic for the overhead.
Got it.
And we kind of, we're actually not just a massage therapy clinic. So we're physiotherapy front end. We're heavy loaded on physiotherapy, chiropractic, massage therapy, kinesiology. We've got psychology. I'm forgetting something, I'm sure. But OT. Yeah. Perfect. I'm glad. So Flannery's an OT, and Steve's a massage therapist, and Shane is a manager. So
where's your location in Chilliwack?
Do you know where the Corky's Pub is?
Yes.
Right next to that used to be the Gallery Spa.
Oh, okay.
We took over the Gallery Spa.
Got it.
In their space there. It's a beautiful big space, and we were able to utilize it as it was, which was nice.
Nice.
Yeah, super nice. And in Abbotsford, we're in what used to be the Center Ice, and now it's called the Summit Center, which is kitty corner to Rick Hansen High School on Town Line and Blue Ridge. 2 ice hockey rinks in there, and a huge gym upstairs.
And how did the businesses grow? Like, you're doing 4,000 sessions or clients a month. Like, is it word of mouth, or are you very particular on marketing and promotion, or a combination? I
would say that originally marketing promotion was all social. So it was visiting doctors, befriending our doctors, and spending a lot of time with them.
So actual social, not this social media thing.
This thing right here.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, social media really helps now. So Flannery is our best social media person. So if Chilliwack is a little slow, she'll post an ad, and then we have way too many patients. It's so amazing, actually, how that works. But back in the day, it was a bottle of wine every Christmas, for the doctors who were referring. And we couldn't keep up, honestly. If you're a good therapist, you do a good job, and you care about the people you're working with, you'll always be busy. So it was hard I had good people, so it was hard to keep up.
So 25 years, your role changed to a big degree or a small degree? Like, when did you say, I'm no longer going to be doing the actual massages?
That was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And really, it was my wife who said enough is enough. Like, I was hurt physically as well. And I think it's years of being an athlete and looking down at a table we figured I treated over 75,000 patient visits.
Throwing telephone poles, maybe?
That might do that too. That might do that too. Yeah, we kind of skipped over that a little bit, but it's very hard on the body. Yeah. And so really, we knew that it was time for me to work on it, not in it. And we transitioned out of me being a therapist. And it's amazing. Did you find
that was another, your identity wrapped up in that, the same way that your identity was wrapped up in athletics, or was it just more of a natural progression?
It was okay. It was natural. Yeah. I think that to this day, most people think I'm still that, but I'm not. I gave up my license. After going to the cadaver lab every year, 10 years in a row, you kind of get tired of doing that just to keep your credits up. So I thought, if I'm not going to work on anybody, I think I'm done with the cadaver lab. So,
got it.
Yeah. But no, that was quite easy. And because I'm so involved still, helping out and managing, and it's not a big move. It wasn't a big move.
And there's been 2 adjacent opportunities that came up, and we'll dig deeply into P3 in a moment. But one of them, I was looking, and you were involved in core shorts.
Yeah.
What is core shorts, and what was your involvement?
Has anyone heard of core shorts? That's so amazing product invented by Greg Bay. Greg's a physiotherapist that came out of Fraser Valley, and he created a compression short that basically gives stability to an injured pelvis. So a groin injury is a good example. A lot of athletes get groin injuries. You pull these shorts on, and as soon as you move your legs to take a step, it sucks in your pelvis, and the groin doesn't hurt. It was amazing. It was so amazing that Roger Federer, Roger Clemens, all these athletes started asking for this. And it just went crazy. And we went on Dragon's Den, and it was so funny. It was on the first year of Dragon's Den. If anyone ever goes back and watches it, Greg drops his pants on Dragon's Den. He was the first kind of crazy guy on Dragon's Den, and he's a crazy guy. So they weren't going to, this is a fun inside story. They weren't going to take him on the show. But he said to the producer, "That's too bad. I was going to get to drop my pants on national television." And she said, "What? You'd be willing to do that?" He said, "Absolutely." She says, "You're on." And that's why we got on. And so, and then after the presentation, and it is such a great product, they said no. But Arlene Dickinson at the end of the year came back on CBC and said, "That was our biggest mistake. We didn't take core shorts on." Right after that, Under Armour took us on. And so we signed a deal. I don't know how many years it was. I think it was a 10-year deal over to Under Armour. And that didn't work very well. But in that time...
why didn't it work?
Why didn't it work?
Yeah.
I think that they weren't educated about it. So salespeople are great, but if they're not educated in what it's doing, it's not just a compression pants. One of the greatest stories is there was this young lady who has spinal cord injury, and she had no use of her legs. But when she put these shorts on, she could ride a horse, and she was in equestrian Paralympics, and it was incredible. So she literally said, "If I don't have these, I can't do my event." And so if you understand that, and you're a gardener, like you're like me, and you're an old athlete, and you're trying to work around the house, and your hip is sore, you throw these on, you can go do stuff. It's amazing. And it's not a brace. It doesn't make you weaker because it only activates when you move. So it encourages movement. So when I'd go to a trade show and I would talk, everybody wanted core shorts. If Greg would talk, everybody wanted core shorts. But you'd throw some people who don't necessarily know the medical background. And
it's interesting because so many entrepreneurs that their goal is to build something to be acquired. Post-acquisition, there's either an earnout or they are now in a position where they're an employee and they aspired to not have a boss. And then if it's a large company, like I imagine Under Armour acquiring a stake in this, it was like this much of the portfolio, and you just feel like it's withering and dying. But it sounds like he was able to then...
He got it back.
Got it back.
Yeah. And so the best part, too, is with these shorts, so if you see them, there's a big X. The elastic is an X, so when you separate, it tightens. And we were able to actually he was able to, I don't want to take any credit for that, he was able to get a patent on that that could not be broken. And Nike tried to break it. A few others tried to break it, and they couldn't. So they all passed on it. And they've all made compression shorts since, but none like this. And so they're now reselling. I just did a thing on LinkedIn as a shout out for Greg, and the impressions are crazy versus the other posts I do, just because of how well known he is and those shorts are. And I just wanted to say, don't forget about Core Shorts. They're back, and this is their new logo. So this is the post Under Armour logo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another side hustle venture that came about, and you touched on it in your elevator pitch that I made you do at the very front, was P3 cream. And refresh us. Where did the idea come from, and how did you bring it to a product level?
So in 2007, I was working with a lot of athletes still, and a really terrible thing happened where a young athlete out of New York, a high school in New York State, passed away from using Bengay, which we all thought Bengay was fine. Well, not for her, it wasn't. So she had an allergy to aspirin, and it was all over CNN, and it got to a point where all of the therapists in our group said, no more topicals, because we don't know the liability of this. I don't know what you're taking. I don't know your history if I just see you at a track meet. And then it's not a one-time application thing. It would be a repetitive application. But let's say I applied something to you and you thought, oh, that feels so good. Then you went and you asked me what it was, and then I told you, and you went and bought it, and you put it on every night. And then it gathered in your liver to a point of you started to throw up, and you didn't know why. You got a rash, you didn't know why, and then you died. And that's what happened to her. And she's one of many. So I said a stat about 98% of topicals have poisons in them, essentially. Especially, most are contraindicated with heart medication. So let's say now you have a mom who's 76 and she's on a heart medication, a blood thinner, and she has sore legs, so we give her Voltaren. Well, diclofenac does not mix with heart medication, but no one tells you that. And so we have to know this. If we have a patient coming in, we have to do a history of the patient and what medications are you on. And the reason people ask that is so we know what to use with you if we're treating a specific injury. A topical is a great tool in your toolkit if you're a therapist, especially a sports therapist, because it feels so good. And the problem is there were no topicals that were safe to use with everybody. So I made this, and it's safe to use with everybody.
What makes you the guy to make this? If this is a big news story, you would think that pharmaceutical companies or natural health companies or somebody would jump on it. So
BioFreeze did come out around the same time, and a little bit earlier even. BioFreeze is safe. So I have no problem as a therapist using BioFreeze, except it stinks and it's kind of a gel kind of substance.
So it's like the fisherman friends of
exactly
of creams.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
So it works.
Right.
Absolutely. I have nothing bad to say except it stinks. And I actually put it on today in my workout because I was comparing their roll-on to my roll-on. And I put it on both shoulders, and then I did my workout. And it was the exact same feeling. It just stunk. So that was the only problem. And that's fine. Some people don't mind the smell.
I think I was thinking of Buckley's. Buckley's is worse.
I was going to say Buckley's is the other one that comes to mind. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Buckley's was terrible. Oh, that was so bad. My dad used to make me drink that. So the nice thing, I brought everybody some P3. So if you want to hand those around, you can all try it if you want to try it. The nice thing is go ahead, grab the box there. There's a lavender one that's not on the picture, and the original is the red. There's enough for you to kind of take one of each probably. Those are the lavender ones. So you can choose which one you want. The original has a peppermint and eucalyptus. It has a seal, so if you try and smell it, you'll have to might as well rip the seal off while we're talking about it. But the best part is most topicals, they smell like, everybody talks about, it smells like an old locker room in here. It smells like an old age home in here. There's always these comments. Mm-hmm. This does not. This smells like peppermint or lavender and peppermint. And the other nice thing about it is if you feel like trying it right away, did you take the seal off? There's it's like you got to use that. You have to bite that thing off. I don't know.
Should I put it on like an elbow? Or
But yeah, absolutely. If you want to really feel it, throw it on your neck. Now, most people will say, "Oh, I don't want to put it on my neck because it's greasy." That's not. That's the best part about this. It's a water base. Yeah, throw it on the back. It's a water base, so it is going to dry in about 2.5 minutes, and it won't stain your clothes. It won't wreck your hair. It will feel fantastic for about an hour. It reminds you of something?
Like from Ukraine, we have this Red Star cream.
Yep.
That helps and stuff like that. I'm not sure what it's made of, but it's also from natural ingredients.
There you go.
It kind of smells like.
See, this is the 100th monkey theory. Have you ever heard of the 100th monkey theory? Yeah, the one monkey on the island, and then by the time the 100th one figures it out, there's another monkey on that island that figured it out. I might be the monkey that figured it out after 100 people over there figured it out.
Give it to my mother-in-law for sure.
Yeah. It's the big thing with that is being a water base was our big key. So as a therapist, I needed it to work appropriately for my therapy, and I needed it to feel good on my patients, and it had to smell good on my patients. So basically, when people would leave the clinic, they would start saying, "Oh, I feel so good," as opposed to, "Oh, you really hurt me today." And we started seeing this turnover of, they weren't complaining, but they were noticing this. I'm sure you've all had treatment that's been, uncomfortable if you've gone to see a chiropractor or a physio or a massage therapist, and throwing this on at the end or using it through the whole treatment, you're left with this minty, fresh feeling. It's kind of a cooling effect.
So this news hits. We're not going to use the Bengay type creams. Where do you start? Like, how did you go out and in the workshop and start mixing stuff, or how does it happen?
It was a total coincidental fluke, or it wasn't. I was playing music, so once again using another part of my life and being social, and a very good friend of mine who I was playing with at a gig one night, he sold topical products in a dairy industry for mastitis for cows. So I tell him this story, what happened, and he said, "Oh, you should use the udder cream we use." And I said, "I'm not using."
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not using mastitis cream on my patients. That's terrible. They would not want me to do that. And he said, "No, it'll be fine." So he gave me a few tubes, and it was a pilly, kind of dry, more dry than this, obviously, but it was the base of this. And everybody, I said, "Hey, do you mind if I put this udder cream on you?" And they said, "Sure, I don't care what you do." So they all trusted me.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't harmful because it was this natural product that the Health Canada was allowing them to put on udders and then milk the cows the next day, like it was all
And I
part of this.
imagine the therapist or the massage therapist would be patient one because they're using it all day long, right? It's not just a little bit.
If we back up, when I worked with the Canucks, we used something called A535. No, Flexol 454, because Larry invented it, Larry Ashley. And it was so bad we had to put gloves on or it would just eat our hands. Like the alcohol in it was so bad. So I literally would have to apply it on guys with gloves. And then it would burn on these poor guys. So,
For those of you watching the video, it smells really nice in here right now.
right? Can anyone feel it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? It feels nice, right? And so that's that feeling you leave the clinic with, instead of that someone just ripped my neck
I think
apart.
I just need your hands on the back.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Those hands aren't registering anymore.
yeah, right. And it's so funny. We go to trade shows and people are like, "Oh, I don't know if I." And I said, "Listen, come here, I'll do it." And they'll get a kick out of it because I have no problem grabbing your leg and rubbing cream on your leg. It's hilarious. But that's the way I spent my life.
And so is it iterative, or did you get the mix just right off the bat? Or?
No. So the first 5 people I tried on, they all said, "Can I have that?" So I gave it to them, and I phoned them. I said, "Yeah, so it's all gone. I think we need to do something here." So I met with the chemist, and we talked about what I wanted out of it, so it was usable for human treatment. And he's like, I don't know what we can do. So we went over it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then we came up with something close to this. And I was able to use that for quite a few years. And then I went and reformulated it again in 2019 to what it is today.
And what does P3 stand for? Or is it just, where did that name come from?
So in the day when we did this, the big thing was everything in threes when in marketing. So professionalism, pain relief, prevention. It was all about what are we bringing? I'm helping you with prevention. So if you're really sore and you don't want to go for that walk because your knee is aching, lather your knee up with this stuff, and I guarantee you'll go for the walk. So the idea is it doesn't fix you, but it gets you moving, and movement fixes a lot of these ailments, musculoskeletal ailments.
So in the early days, did you have a glimmer that this might be beyond our practice, or was it just like...
Yeah, I'm cheap, so I just didn't want to pay for a topical. So I just really believed it was
And
there.
even talking to this chemist, did you think about, how do I protect myself? Is this something that I can own the recipe to? Or
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but could someone reverse engineer this and figure out what your ingredients are? Or
They probably could. Although there is one stage that they can't. It's like making cookies. If you put the wrong thing in at the wrong time, it doesn't work.
Got it.
And there is a point to that, and so that's why it took so long in the lab. And finally, when I went in and I said, "This is how we have to do it," and it was based on my education from before, it worked. And so that's kind of that one thing that I know that even our chemists didn't know at the time when I reformulated it.
And so you mentioned 2007, correct?
Yeah.
And so e-commerce platforms weren't a thing.
No.
People were getting it from you at the clinic. How did you start to expand, like set up a distribution network, and what were some of the pieces involved in that?
So in the clinic, basically, it was word of mouth. So other clinicians started saying, "Hey, could I sell that at my clinic?" And then I had to figure that out. So I literally, the first bottle, I drew the label and we printed up all these labels. I was on a plane going to a core shorts thing down in Atlanta, and I was sitting with a lady, and her name was Pilar. And I asked her opinion of the label I was sketching, and she said, "Well, my name's Pilar, and I would never use that P for my name." So then she helped me change the P into what she thought was more attractive, and that was the first P on our label before this label.
Okay. When I did a Google image search, I saw more of a whimsical...
Yeah, more of a Flintstones kind of look. Yeah, that was me.
Got it.
Drawing up a P and a 3, right? And so growing it, the other thing that happened that was big in around 2008 was Sean Loftus, who was a buyer for Save On Foods, loved P3. And I don't know where he found it, but he reached out. I went and met with him, and they listed it with no listing fee. Like, they just said, "Nope, you guys can put it on the shelf." And we've been on the shelf in Save On Foods ever since. And
without sharing too much,
Yeah.
like, when you put it on a shelf, are you getting like half or a third, or how does that?
Yeah, so Save On is the worst example because, of course, they take all of their fees off, their warehousing fees and their in-house advertising fees, and they have so many, nickel and diming fees in their contract. We make less than other wholesalers, but we're still doubling what we pay for it.
Got it.
So yeah, so we're still doing well with it.
And so you've got that level, the retailers, and you're in others now as well, are you not? Like,
Oh yeah. We're over 1,000 locations across Canada, and that's all been word of mouth. And so just now, I'm just hiring our first ever salesperson. So she's coming up here on the 10th of June.
So this thing
start.
quietly did its thing now for more than a decade and a half, and and you're realizing, well, maybe that's the thing I should be concentrating on. Was there a moment, I guess, now that you're not booked all day with massage? You've now got some time to step back and think. What's your time allocation between Apollo and P3 now?
I would say it's about 80-20, so 80% P3, 20% Apollo at this point. It really became evident when, as we start, I'll talk about that in a second. As we started to grow that, and people were working for me, then I had the responsibility of, okay, we need to solidify their job as well. It's not just, it's not about me. It's about making sure they're okay, and they have mortgages and they have families, and so if they're going to commit to me, I'm going to commit to them. And so now we're marketing, and we're on Amazon, and we're in Shopify, and we just started Amazon last year, and we just hit $10K a month on Amazon alone yesterday.
Wow! So
that's kind of cool that we can go from 0 to $10K a month on Amazon. I didn't think that we would do that.
So for people that are interested in selling something on Amazon, what are the hoops that you've got to go through to get your product? Are they warehousing it for you?
Yeah, they supply, or they fulfill. So if we're talking about a product like this, it's a topical and not medicated, but there are a lot more hoops than if you want to sell a T-shirt or a hat or shoes. So we went through a lot of pains for the first 6 months of just getting listed because they were refusing us. Oh, you have one ingredient that's no good. Well, we didn't even have that ingredient, but we couldn't talk to anyone at Amazon to say we don't have that ingredient. Look again. And finally, it just one day, bang, you're allowed to be on here and they would allow one product and not 5 others. They're all the same thing, just different sizes. So it's really, that was dealing with the digital world and not a human. If it was a human, it would be no problem. I actually got a hold of someone once and I said, do you know the team that is putting a stop on this? Yes. Could you walk over there? Well, no, they're not here. Do they exist? Yes. Do they have phones? I assume they do. Can you phone them? No. Do they have emails? Yes. Can you email them? No. It was so frustrating. And I think that when I think about Amazon, that was our biggest hurdle. But if your product is not one that can be ingested or go in someone's eye and cause pain, then you'll be fine. Yeah. If you're just reselling, like coffee mugs and stuff like that, it's amazing. Right?
And I've heard that, well, some people really play the game, and you can think 40 to 50% of all reviews on Amazon are maybe fake and so forth. How do you get that? Like, how do you bubble up to the top?
It's a great question because we just looked at this and we have amazing reviews. So we're very fortunate. We have a good product and everybody loves it. But we only have let's say 100 reviews on Amazon versus 5,000 for Kalea. So I'm pretty sure they bought those because someone told me I could buy them. And I said, I don't want to buy them. I want real people to tell me what they think of this. And so I don't know how to deal with that because we definitely are not rising to the top digitally.
What do people search for? What would the
topical pain relief?
Okay.
We actually use our AdWords to figure this out on Amazon. We have a campaign right now that if you search for Advil or if you search for Voltaren, then we'll pop up as well. So we're seeing if that's paying off at all. It's not really. I think when people know what they want, and you guys probably know, if you know what you want, you don't really want to look at that other thing. There's got to be a reason to look at other things. So what they're telling me now is I need to explain it on a video to give you a reason to try that.
Right.
As opposed to that. So if I knew right now, if you said to me, my wife bought a bottle of Voltaren, I would say, well, throw it in the garbage and I'll give you a bottle of this. I'm that convinced you shouldn't use the other thing for lots of different reasons. But I can't do that with people I don't know. I do answer everybody, though, who sends us a comment. So we have a 620 stream comments that I keep answering. Mike or myself, one of us, whoever gets to it first. I love that. That's just like having patience again. I talk to people all the time. So they'll phone and they'll ask Mike about their shoulder. And then he'll give me the phone and then I'll spend half an hour with a lady from Florida. I had this dancing lady from Texas who was traveling the world doing ballroom dancing who wanted something to help her plantar fasciitis. So we just talked about plantar fasciitis. And so I love that stuff.
So as opposed to the retail front, the Save-On, the London Drugs, etc., what's the general cut on Amazon?
Amazon's actually better than even if we ship it out ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, because of Canada Post. We can definitely blame that. I don't know if anyone ships in here, but in the last 3 years, it's like doubled. Pricing has been crazy.
So you have a banner that says free shipping on $75 plus. What would a small box cost you to ship?
So it depends where, because we get people in Labrador who are
Right.
buying it, and that's a lot more expensive than in Abbotsford, right?
Yeah.
So if we're shipping that box
Yep.
to Vancouver, that's going to cost now. Used to cost $8. Now it's $15. Yeah, and depending on the weight, but like if we fill that, the value will be over $100, but it'll cost about $15 to ship to Vancouver.
Right. And do you have many returns?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. This
Not at
isn't
all. No.
a sizing issue or.
Yeah, we had an angry person a long time ago, and I said, "Oh well, absolutely, we'll reimburse you the money. Just send us back the bottle. We'll send you a Canada Post thing." Well, no, I want to keep that. So then we learned very quickly that it was just
Right.
It was a person.
Yeah.
It wasn't the product. Yeah.
So lavender, that's your property, isn't it?
That's our farm.
And whereabouts is that?
We're in Greendale.
You don't have to give an address.
No, that's where the warehouse is.
Yeah.
If you drive down South Sumas, where Blackburn meets South Sumas, you'll see that big barn, and that's our warehouse. So what it was is I wanted to move our warehouse into my backyard so I could just walk to work. That was the dream. I told you before I goal set. So one of my goals was I just wanted to walk there. I didn't want to drive to work. And so I built that, and I went to the city and I said, what do I need to do to use it as warehouse on ALR? And they said, well, you have to plant something that you use in your product. No problem. So we made the lavender one, and we planted 1,000 plants of lavender. And then people just wanted to come and see the lavender. It was hilarious. Yeah.
Wow.
So my wife has a little lavender store, and we give out, sachets, and I distill oil. I have a copper still, and I distill the oil out, and yeah, it's quite fun.
And so is this the P3 operation entirely, essentially?
Yeah.
And how many people are working on that business?
I would say, so right now we've got Mike and Kathy and Susan, Dayton, Regan, Declan, so 6, and myself.
Yeah.
And
I bet you couldn't name all the people that work at Apollo with that
I can't
method,
right now.
can you?
I can't right now, no.
There will be a point, I imagine, when P3 exceeds that. And,
Yes.
And it sounds like you're now in the scaling mode. You've said, I'm dedicating time. What are some of the things you've learned about scaling this business? Like, where does the product get? Are you mixing that on premises or?
No, in a lab in Vancouver.
Okay.
So I try to keep everything Canadian, as Canadian as possible. I have a Canadian tattoo from my national team days on my leg, and I really believe in trying to do that. So we even get our tubes made in Quebec. So we try to keep everything as local as we can. We are made in a place called ProLab in Vancouver. They have Health Canada and FDA approval, so you have to be in a lab for that. I would love to have a lab and do it myself. I think it would be fun, but that's a big job.
Yeah.
Yeah, big job. Scaling is, the biggest part is forecasting, because if I am successful in one of my adventures on marketing and I send out 10,000, I reach 10,000 people with a message, and they all go, well, I'll try that. Well, that's not good, because we don't have 10,000 units of that one size ready. So we have to really think about what we're putting out and what we can supply. And it takes about 12 to 16 weeks when we put an order in to have it in the warehouse. So it's not, and that the problem is bringing the oils in, because the oils do come from organic farms in Britain and ones in India. So that's not as easy as just mixing it up out back.
If you take the proud Canadian patriotism out of the mix and you said, if I really wanted to scale this business,
I have to go to the States.
would you be better off in the States, or do you feel like you can still be Canadian-centered, or do you need to physically open something down in the U.S.?
Yeah, unfortunately, with what's happened in the last couple of years in our government, they just put through something that may force us to the States because I don't know if you know about the big Save Our Natural products right now that's going on, and CHFA and Everybody Natural is going to be dinged.
Okay.
And it's a huge potential bill. Like, let's just say last year, if it cost me $0, this year it'll cost me $60,000. Like, it's not a small fee. And there's not really any reason for it other than just a cash cow. So there's a huge fight going on in the world of vitamins and all the things we love to buy, and products like mine, but mostly like your Jamesons and those guys. They're going to be fighting this like crazy.
Right.
And if that goes through, a lot will leave because it's just not.
How are you dealing with that right now? Are you filing taxes with the IRS? Not that this is on video or anything,
Yeah.
but have you set up that
In the States?
Yeah.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
We're not doing enough down there yet.
Got it.
But I have phoned Utah, and I phoned a place in Boise, talked to a place in California. The smartest place would be probably Montana, like places like that. And honestly, if I did it there, what it cost me to make one of these tubes here, I could do it for half down there, which is too bad. Really is. And it's really just a markup. That's all it is. It's just fees. Whether it's coming across the border or over
Yeah,
the
and I
water.
guess in straight math, the market in the U.S. is 10 to 15 times the size. And
So we're going on to Amazon.com soon. But in order to do that, so this is the part of the scaling question again, is we want to kill it on Amazon.ca. So we want to be really present there, which we're getting there. But then imagine now we have to reprint labels because they don't want French on there.
right.
So how many labels do you print? How many units are you going to sell on Amazon.com? What support are you going to have with marketing behind it? Where are you going to target? Because do you target the whole states, or do you just target like Arizona, where we have a whole bunch of people buying it right now? Do I print 5,000 labels? Do I put on 5,000 bottles and send that and say, I hope it works? I don't know.
Right.
This is what I'm trying to learn right now. I didn't count that salesperson because she's not yet hired technically, but that would be our 6th person that joins us, and she'll have a lot of input on this as well. She's got like 40 years of experience and super involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are you excited about it with the future?
I think I'm excited about climbing this mountain because in my life, I seem to get something I really want. And when I achieve it, then I move to the next thing. And this is definitely the biggest one. And I have there's a 7th person, I'm sorry. I have a new partner in P3, a very small partner, but he has worked for 40 years in huge business, worked for General Mills and got Costco into Canada. And so he is like another brother to me. I've known him my whole life. And he has joined to help me get to this highest level. And so what are we excited about? I'm excited about getting good at this, I think. I'm not there yet by any means.
And with Apollo, have a succession plan in place. Tell us about that.
So I started, 100% ownership of that. And as therapists came up who were really close to me that were interested in being entrepreneurial, I set up a way that they could buy into the clinics. And so at this point, I'm down to 29% in one and 30% in the other. And I've got 5 different partners now, which is great. They're all doing a really good job, and they really just come to me for the big problems and more for just reinforcement of, are we doing this okay, and how does it feel? And the feeling is really good right now. Good people. Yeah.
I asked you what you're excited about with P3. What are you concerned, terrified, unsure of as you scale?
That's good. I don't know. I don't get too terrified about that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
And you've done it on your own. You haven't needed to get outside financing or capital. It's kind of build it as you go.
I don't really owe anybody anything there, so I'm not worried about that. It would be more letting people down. Like if they tried to buy it and it wasn't on the shelf because we got too successful, that would be hard for me. I would want to make sure that we logistically are ready to go to that level of, because if 100,000 people, which is nothing, like to be super clear, 100, that's Chilliwack.
Yeah.
If 100,000 people bought one of those tubes tomorrow, what's a $9 million a year business? We're not even close to that. So how easy is that to have 100,000 people go, yeah, I'll buy that, because they have confidence in it. And really, for me, the confidence for this product is it's super simple, it's safe, and it feels great, and it smells good. It's like smells like Christmas, feels like heaven. That's kind of our fun tagline, right? And when you look at our competitor Biofreeze, that feels like heaven, stinks like manure. I think that we have a chance of doing really well. And so, and as a therapist, I couldn't use it with people. So
Do you see a day where you're in Costco and Walmart potentially, or is that not in the dream?
Oh yeah, I talked to Walmart. They wanted us in there, but then page 12 comes out, and it's like,
right.
It would just be a waste of my time.
And have you run into situations where people are wanting for exclusivity and had to navigate those types of things, or not really?
Not yet. Walmart did say that, and I said, well, I can't because I'm already in Save-On, so we can't do that. Save-On, at the beginning, he suggested that, but that was for 1 year.
Yeah.
And so that's long gone. I think really it's just really a matter of educating people to that next level of where could we be. Costco would be easy because we have big jugs we could put in Costco. So if someone loves it, we have a lot of individuals who buy a gallon. I don't know what they do with it, but they take a gallon.
As Marge Simpson said, this is a tremendous price on 20 pounds of mayonnaise.
Exactly, right?
Pardon my Marge.
That sounded good, actually.
Well, you guys are going to have better questions than me, but let's hear it for John.
Thank you.